My name is Alex Johnson. I've been an intern at the People's Resource Center this summer. I've mostly been in Wheaton working with Julie. But now we are doing a talk for you guys in Westmont because we've had so much success in Wheaton and we want to continue on that path. So I am currently at the Kelly School of Business at Indiana University studying economics, basically, and business analytics. So it's been really exciting. I'm going to be a junior next year.
I'm Sydney Kopp. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. My voice is kind of today, but I've been an intern at the PRC this summer. I also work mostly in Wheaton, but I've been here a couple times. It's a really cool place. It's really new and I like it. But Wheaton is still my home. It's really cool that we get to be here in Westmont today to teach you guys. I like the new faces. It's nice to meet you all. I'm currently at Western Michigan University studying fashion merchandising, general business, and gender and women's studies. And yeah, I'm glad to be here today.
So we prepared a PowerPoint with some stuff we thought that you guys might want to go over.
So the PowerPoint is pretty general information and it'll cover most of what's on your phone. So if you have any specific questions within those topics, we can go into that too.
So the first thing that we kind of wanted to discuss that I kind of, from talking with people, have heard is an issue in terms of understanding the differences is Wi-Fi versus data. What is charged to your plan, what is not, and how do you connect to each? So Wi-Fi is basically an internet connection allowing your computer or your smartphone to communicate with the internet wirelessly, as opposed to how it did in the past where you need a modem or to connect with a cord. As the slide says, Wi-Fi is going to exist in most office buildings and homes. We have Wi-Fi here at the PRC you can connect to on your phone, and all of those computers are connected to that Wi-Fi. Most Wi-Fi networks are going to require a password, usually because the office building or your home wants to have a secure internet connection. They don't want anybody to try and find your information. And also, if too many people get on a Wi-Fi connection at one time, the speed slows down and then it's just not as easy to use. So people not wanting that will require a password to get onto the Wi-Fi. We have some pictures on how you can go through that later on in the slideshow. Wi-Fi, in terms of being charged to your plan, is unlimited. If you are connected to Wi-Fi, you can use that as long as you want without getting an overage charge from your cell phone provider. So that's why Wi-Fi is great. I would greatly encourage you, if there is Wi-Fi anywhere and you have the password and if it's free, to use that if you need to send an email or connect to the internet, rather than try and use data, because the more data that you use, the more likely you could get that overage charge, and many cell phone plans only allocate a specific amount of data usage per month. If it's a business, chances are they're probably not going to want you on some of their networks that they only use for their employees. They'll have a guest. Yeah, they'll have a guest network that either won't need a password.
Yeah, that's probably.
And some places don't let you always get on, like Jewel isn't gonna let you get on. Okay? Ma'am?
Okay, sure.
It's mostly going to be places where they assume you're staying for an extended period of time. So places like the grocery store probably won't have Wi-Fi for you because they assume that you want to get in and out as fast as you can. But
whereas Starbucks has free Wi-Fi that you can connect to at any location. Though the danger with the free Wi-Fi and ones that you can connect on as like with a guest connection is that it's probably not as secure.
So you never give your credit card number over that connection?
I would not be checking my bank statements at Starbucks.
No
I
kidding.
would go home
No
and do that.
kidding. Good to know.
I mean, the chances of you getting hacked and having something bad happen are pretty low, but they're greater on one of those open networks than at your house.
Very good to know.
Okay, so contrasting Wi-Fi with data. Data and Wi-Fi allow you to do the same thing, which is connect to the internet. However, like I mentioned before, you have a certain allotment of data use per month, and if you go over that, data usage, chances are you're going to get a charge on your phone bill. So be careful when you are using data. Data in general, you'll have to use it in situations where you don't have Wi-Fi. So whether you're in a really rural area or if you're at Jewel, like you mentioned before, Jewel's not going to let you on your Wi-Fi. So if you wanted to send an email at Jewel, you would have to turn on your data and send that email. Also, crowded cities tend not to have Wi-Fi connection that you can get to, so you'd have to use data there. I would suggest, at least what I personally do, is keep that data. If you're going to have an ability on your phone to keep data off, just turn it off in all situations and only turn it on
How
when
would you
there's
do
no
that?
Wi-Fi. How do you turn data off?
We can go through that if you would like.
You what?
For the iPhone, we can go through that if you want. So there is actually a setting now that says cellular, and then it's just a switch. Also, in this area of your settings, you can see what is using your cellular data, and you can turn it off. So right now, apparently my FaceTime app is using my cellular data, which it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. On Android, it is a extremely similar process. So those of you that have Androids, I'd be happy to go through
I don't
it
have that.
afterwards. I kind of went over this earlier, but both Wi-Fi and data can allow you to use the internet, and they can be turned on and off at any time, as Sydney went over on the Apple device. So this is how you would get onto a Wi-Fi on an Android device, but as you remember from when Sydney projected her screen earlier, it was very similar on Apple. So you can see that this person found the Wi-Fi icon, turned it on, and then chose to connect to this specific network and typed in the password. So it's pretty simple. This is when you use an email versus when you use a text. I don't know if you guys are already familiar with that. We could skip it, we could talk about it, whatever you guys would want.
Can I ask, text messaging in general would cost less to send as opposed to straight emails?
It depends, because on iPhones, if you are using iMessage and you're using data, it'll use up your data for that unless you turn it off. Text messages, if you have a limited amount of text messages or you pay per text message too, it could cost more.
Not many phone plans do that anymore.
But I know a couple, so I thought I would mention it, but,
I think they found they can make more money charging you for data than text.
right.
So they moved to that. If you're using Wi-Fi, texts and emails cost you the exact same amount of money. But I guess in the aggregate, text would be less. In those situations, you'd have to use data. That's an old text messaging icon for Android. Depending on your phone, whether it's Apple or Android, you'll have an icon that looks somewhat like that, and you will know that that is your text message.
I think it's more rounded
Yep.
for iPhone,
Yes, just
but it has a
generally a
little
little
face
chat
on it
bubble.
with the drop arrow.
Typically, they're used for more informal situations because you are limited to 160 characters per text message.
That's what a
I
text
don't
message
believe that
means.
is that way
And
on my phone.
160 characters, which would be letters or whatever.
Letters, spaces,
Numbers or whatever.
in total.
On
At least
iPhone,
for
I
Android.
do not believe it is 160 characters. I think it is however many characters your heart desires, but at that point, it would be easier to make a phone call.
Yeah.
A phone call. But the thing to do nowadays, people just text back and forth, and a phone call is when it's a lengthier, more private thing? Is that the way it works?
It depends on personal preference, quite honestly.
Right, and situational. So if I'm having a conversation with Alex that's lengthy, but I'm also in a public place, like I'm at work or I'm at in class or something like that, then I would be
Or
texting
she's
her.
like
but
in the library and she
Right.
doesn't want to make a call.
But you're on
and
their
tell everybody.
Wi-Fi, can they then tune into all your stuff?
I would not think the library would be looking through your text messages.
Yeah, they can't get to text messages. She's at the library. But, yeah, if she's at the library and she doesn't want to bug everyone else in the library by calling me, she could have a texting conversation with me. But if it was a longer conversation that she really needed my opinion about, she'd probably give me a call. It really depends on the person. Some
Okay.
people our age absolutely refuse phone calls.
And what is your age?
I'm 20.
I am nearly 20.
Oh, it's not my turn.
It's also useful for like
Okay.
if, when I mentioned work and class, it's useful for if we were having a lengthy conversation but it wasn't time sensitive. So if she texted me, hey, what are you doing next September? And I was like, well, that's a long way away. So I can text her back in however long it takes me because I don't have to immediately be talking to her. It's useful for those situations.
It's also good for if you need a really quick answer on something. So I got caught in traffic and Sydney texted me where I was, and then I could tell her. That's a lot faster than Sydney calling me telling her where I am, and then hanging up the phone. For texts, in general, if you want to attach a big PowerPoint or a Word document, more advanced phones could do that, but I wouldn't recommend it on a text message because if you really want to send a PowerPoint or a Word document for work, it's a lot easier to read that on a computer, and I would recommend sending that as an email instead.
And generally iPhones, I don't know if there's new word processing, but generally iPhones don't have the capability to open up any sort of Microsoft Office thing and edit it. So if you were sending something like a PowerPoint or a Word document, it would be better to send it through email because then you can edit it through your computer.
But like when I went to Hong Kong this summer and I did some cool stuff and I wanted to send Cindy some pictures, I can do that on text message because her phone can receive them and it's easier, very easy. It's easy to see a picture on her phone and she can get it, whereas that other stuff, not as much. I could send the pictures in an email if I really wanted to, like if I had a ton and I wanted to send her my whole Hong Kong album, I'd send that in an email. But if it was just one or two cool pictures of me doing something fun, I would stick to a text message. Text messages can also be difficult if you have a large group. I know we got a question in Wheaton where a woman wanted to text multiple people the same thing, but she didn't want a response to be sent to all of those people. If you wanted to do that sort of thing, you can do it on an email with stuff like CC or BCC. But in a text, if I sent a message to Sydney and Mrs. Akins at the PRC and Sydney sent a response, both Mrs. Akins and I would see it. So there are kind of limitations on text messaging for groups, whereas email, that can be easier.
There are ways around that though. I believe if you turn group message off, sometimes it works, or iMessage off, it works that you will get responses individually from everyone, or you can send them individual responses, or if you needed to just send a message or a picture, you can just forward it to individual people, which is what I end up doing a lot. And it shouldn't start a group message. Sometimes my phone has a mind of its own, and it does, but you should be able to forward and do things individually. It's more complicated, but if you prefer email, it's less complicated, I suppose.
So on text messages, you see a paperclip icon like that. That is what you would search for if I wanted to attach my Hong Kong photo and send it to Sydney. There would probably be a similar thing on an Apple
On the iPhone,
device.
it looks different. If you want me to show you how to do that on the iPhone,
Sure.
there would be a little camera button, that I could press, and then I can either take a picture, or I can,
You called it, what kind of a button?
there's a camera button.
Oh, camera
So on
button.
the side here, there's gonna be a little
Mr.
camera
Camera.
icon.
Where's your
Yes.
camera?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And then if I wanted to send her a picture, my recent pictures should come up on the side, like you see. So if I want
Yeah,
to send
yeah.
her that,
Uh-huh, okay.
I just attach it and send it. Or I can
You can attach
take a
it
picture
and send it, how do you send it?
with the green arrow.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's very easy.
And I can also take a picture directly from there and send it to her. And then if you don't see your pictures in the picture that you want to send in those recent ones, then it does give you the option to go to your photo library with that little arrow that's next to the camera, right here.
Uh-huh.
What does AirPlay mean versus AirDrop? I know you told me, I forgot.
AirPlay is going to be essentially, if I wanted to play a song through my Apple TV, then I would choose the song, press AirPlay, and it would play only the audio. So it wouldn't mirror like it is here. Or you can also do videos this way. It doesn't work terribly well, but it does work if you like laggy video. But I find that sometimes it's useful. I can give you an example of that if you wanted.
I'm not sure how often you use it.
Nah.
I don't end up using it a
I
lot,
don't.
but
That's the problem, I don't use it much, but I'd like to know.
it's just the capabilities are there if you want to use them.
Thank you.
I can give you a slightly better example.
Yeah.
If you have your iTunes running on your laptop or your Mac, using AirPlay would allow you to stream MP4 videos straight to your television.
I found it useful for slideshows. I found it useful if I want to. My sorority gets together sometimes and we watch videos of like step shows and we broadcast them onto the TV, and it's just easier for a group of people to look at that way than gathering around a phone screen or a computer screen.
So this was on the old Android devices. On Androids and Apple now, if you want to switch what language you want to text in, there's usually a globe, and then you can click on that globe and select whatever language you want. So if I wanted to text my mother in Greek, I could, even though,
Is there a question about how to add those keyboards or no?
Well, might as well, yes. How do you, if intentionally? I mean, I add it all the time, but I have no idea what I
Right.
did.
So if you needed to type in a different language, like I have a French keyboard,
No, don't do it, no.
then you can go into your settings and then it should be under general and keyboards, and then you can add it through there. And then how to access it is just that little globe, so you hold it down and then you can see all of the keyboards that you have. And so I have like English and emoji keyboard, and I can switch between them pretty easily.
Show me exactly how you do that, to pull all that down.
Okay. You can go into general in your settings and keyboard. And then you go into keyboards and you can add a new keyboard. And then it has tons of languages that you could possibly speak. And so like I have a French keyboard, so if I was typing to my friends in French, it would autocorrect my spelling in French. Because English keyboards wouldn't do that because it doesn't
You
know
don't
French.
have the little squigglies and everything
Right.
that you go on.
And then to access that, you would go into so any sort of thing that you're typing in, you would have a keyboard with this little globe button, and you hold it down, and you can see all of the keyboards that you have.
Yeah,
So if I wanted
even
to
the
type something in
emoji
French.
one. Show her how to get on the emoji one. She'd
I'm
love
good,
that.
yeah, see.
So this is just your emoji
I
keyboard.
just love them, yeah.
It comes with the iPhone. I don't believe you have to add it.
No, we
And
don't.
then,
Yeah,
all your emojis.
if you send an iMessage to me or something.
Thank you.
all right. So this is a typical text conversation, like Sydney and I were talking about earlier. You could see that they're discussing whether or not they're going to attend a barbecue and they confirmed it, and it was a pretty easy conversation. So now we are at email. If you have an Android device, you're required to have a Gmail account. This is the Gmail icon here. Gmail is one of many different email accounts that you could have. You could have an Outlook. A lot of people have that. AOL is an older one. Yahoo. You could have a work email. But all of them serve essentially the same function. And that's to send messages to other people in some ways that text messaging really can't. So unlike text with Android phones, as I was talking about before, there isn't a limit in characters per message for an email. So if I had a complex question about a project, I would probably send that to Sydney in an email if we were working on that together, so she could pull those paragraphs up on her computer and see them more easily. PowerPoints, Excel files, Word documents, all of that can work on email if you attach those. Again, because it has more storage in that way. And email is a lot more common in teams to communicate with each other. So if I was working on something with 5 other people and I said, oh, here's the rough draft of this report I had just written, I could send it to everybody on the project and they could download and look at that report. Email also has what's called BCC and CC. BCC stands for blind carbon copy. Most people don't do blind carbon copy because it's kind of a little sneaky. The only people that I know that do it would be my dad, because he's a lawyer and he has to do that sometimes in legal things. But what a blind carbon copy is, say I was sending Mrs. Akins an email about Sydney, and I was really mad at Sydney at the time. I'm never really mad at Sydney, but let's just say this was a situation, and I was really mad at Sydney, and I sent an email to Mrs. Akins about this terrible thing that Sydney had did, just that angered me so much. I could blind carbon copy somebody else on that email, and Sydney wouldn't know that they received it. Whereas carbon copy is a lot less sneaky. So let's say I was sending something to Sydney for her to look over, but Mrs. Aiken should probably look over that too, even though she's not directly in the project. I could CC her on that and she would get the email as well, even though it wasn't directed at her. So yeah, that's email. Super fun. These people are talking via email at work about shipment.
This is generally going to be your home screen. If you haven't changed anything, I believe this is how it comes on your phone if you don't change anything first. So up at the top, you're going to have your notifications bar, which shows your battery life over there, and you can turn the percentage on, which I generally like to have. It'll show if you're connected to Wi-Fi or if you're using your data, which is that little, Wi-Fi symbol. It'll show you what network you're on.
Kind of covering up the time, but you could see the time.
It'll also show if you can see past the arrow, it'll show if you have a timer set on your phone or an alarm set on your phone. It will have that little clock in the upper corner. And then it'll also show you if your Bluetooth is on. And then I believe when your Bluetooth is in use, it'll like flash white when it's connecting, and then it'll stay white when it's connected. And then you can also see if your Do Not Disturb is on, and it'll be a little moon up in the corner. And that means like that you're not receiving notifications at that time, but you can still see them.
Do not disturb is a
Thank
really
you.
nice feature. Let's say, oh, we're gonna go
I
through
was
that
gonna,
later?
yeah, I was gonna
Okay.
go through that
Then
later.
never
We'll go
mind.
more in depth in that
Yeah.
in a bit when we talk about it, but there is the camera button, which is, it looks basically the same from what is here. And then I believe, yeah, the pictures app looks the same and the calendar app looks the same. Is there any questions about these applications? And then the clock app is going to be your alarms and your different time zones. You can look at the world clock, which I am using right now to track my boyfriend and his cross-country road trip, which is pretty cool. Your clock app is also going to be where your stopwatch is and your timer functions, stuff like that. It's pretty straightforward. If you want me to go through any of that, I can too. Setting an alarm or anything like that. It's pretty easy.
You have a nice newsstand there with all the topical
Right.
current.
So that'll look a little bit different. I believe that's on the next slide. The weather application is just going to use your location to show your weather in your hometown, and you can also add different ones. Okay, so
And you can't remove stocks.
You can.
It's like, you can?
you can.
Oh my God.
At least on the iOS that I have, you are able to delete any apps that you don't want,
I don't think
not
you
the
can.
messages or calendar or anything
There's a
like
few
that.
on Facebook that I think, not Facebook, on iPhone that won't let you take out like passbook, I think, stocks.
Right, so there's a few that you will not be able to get rid of, but there will, like stocks I don't have on my phone currently.
Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Yeah.
The reminders app is going to be pretty straightforward. It's just reminders. You can set them to go at a certain time, and you can set them as higher priority. Generally, I use just alarms with captions, and I find it easier because reminders don't always work for me. Notes, you can write notes to yourself. Very straightforward. They will save in your phone and your iCloud as well, so they'll be in both places. You won't ever lose them. The videos app is going to look like this TV app now, and it's basically going to be where all of your videos are if you download videos. The passbook is now going to be your wallet, which is going to be your Apple Pay, your rewards cards that you load on there, gift cards, anything like that. App Store and iTunes Store, where you download apps and music. It's different. I'm not sure why, but it is. And then, okay, so down here on the bottom is going to be the core 4 apps that you use the most, and you can change those out if you want. Like I have my music down there and like my work scheduling app and stuff like that. So all you have to do is hold it down and it'll get a little wobbly and get a little X, and then you drag it.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know that.
I know I'm going a little bit faster because I'm speeding up the time, but if there's any questions, please stop me. Okay, so like I said, the newsstand app is going to be a little bit different looking now. It's going to be just news, and you can set it to if you have news in your hometown, or I have it for like news at my school and news here, and
Or if you want a specific news source.
right, you can also do that. Like Wall Street Journal is on there, CNN is on there, all the major news sources. The compass, which, right, I'm not sure why you would need it generally in daily life, but it's there. It also works as a level if you swipe to the right. I'm not sure how accurately it works as a level, but it works. And then your settings. Right, it's going to be changing your personal info, the accessibility, so getting larger font if you need it, getting a voiceover if you need it, anything like that. If I can answer any questions about that, I'd be happy to. It's also going to be where your updates are for your phone, so if you are on an older version of iOS, it'll remind you that you're on an older version and tell you that you should update your phone. The phone application is just a little telephone. It's going to have a keypad so you can key in numbers. It's also going to have essentially speed dial. It's going to be like a favorites list. And you can set that in your contacts. You can also see your recent calls and your contacts in that app, and your voicemails as well. And it should pop up a little notification next to the app if you do have a voicemail or a missed call. Your email application is going to be the easiest thing to access your email. So you can add multiple different emails. Like I have a Gmail, I have an AOL, I have a .edu on there. So you can add multiple different emails and they'll all show up there. It's easier than downloading the app on an iPhone, in my personal opinion. The music app is where you will see all of your downloaded music, or if you have Apple Music, you'll also see it too there. Safari is going to be your default internet, but I generally use Chrome because I think it works a little bit better, and that is something that you would need to download from the App Store. But Safari works just fine if you don't want to do that. So these are some other really important applications that I think that you would benefit from knowing about. The Find Your iPhone is really useful because if you end up losing your iPhone and you have a Mac or you have an iPad, you can actually locate where the device is on a map. If you have it turned on, it'll also, if you lose your phone in your house, you can make a dinging noise and you can find it more easily. The FaceTime app, which honestly I don't end up using that much because there's like Facebook video chat and everything like that exists now, and FaceTime is generally just between Apple users. So if I were to FaceTime Alex, I would have to use Facebook because she doesn't have an Apple phone. The Voice Memos app, which allows you to just record little audio bits. I find it useful if I write songs sometimes, so I'll just like have some ideas on my phone for songs, or if I'm just trying to make a list of things and I don't have time to write it down, I'll just talk to myself, and it'll save on your phone. And then the Calculator app is pretty straightforward. It's just a calculator. It's not a graphing calculator, so, but I don't think that would be useful for anyone other than some sophomore trig students. Your Contacts app, which allows you to save numbers, email addresses, street addresses, and it's pretty easy to access. You can also set your favorites in there. You can set different ringtones for people. If you want to distinguish them, you can also set the relationship to you. So if you use Siri, you can say, Siri, call my husband, and Siri knows who that is.
All right, I'm gonna go through this pretty quickly. Why are Android phones different from each other? I alluded to that earlier. Android is a software system that is in turn an open source, so it is able to be used by many different phone manufacturers. So a Samsung phone and this LG are both Android, but they look different because they have those different manufacturers. Again, the Android stuff is very similar to what Sydney just showed you on Apple. You've got a notification bar that shows you exactly the same things: battery life, Wi-Fi, voicemail, app updates. Weather is pre-installed, does the same stuff as on the iPhone, and a camera is still a camera. This bar might be on your device, might not be, but it will allow you to search the internet directly. You can just click on it and type right in it. The settings can help you change your personal information. Like Sydney was saying before, that could be anything from getting a larger font to your phone, to your sound settings, to how you want to connect to the internet, see which apps you have. That is all in settings. The clock is also exactly the same as on the iPhone. The pre-installed calendar app, same thing as on the iPhone. Text messaging, we went over that. And clicking that little thing allows you to see every single app that you have installed off the App Store and the ones that are already on your phone when you buy it. Also, like the iPhone, those 4 on the bottom are the 4 that you are able to use the most. And you can change those apps out by clicking and dragging them, but instead of like on the iPhone where you hold it down and the app's shake and you can delete them, on Android you drag the app and a little trash can will appear at the top of your screen and you'll just drag it up there to delete it. The little globe is the default browser on Androids. Some newer models might have the default browser already as Chrome. Again, it really depends. And as I pointed out there, newer models could have that contact section that Sydney talked about earlier, also within the phone app. Other cool features on your phone, that little back arrow takes you one screen back in an application. So if you are reading an article and you clicked on a link and you didn't mean to, you can go back to the original article with that button. Holding down that middle button allows you to go right back to your home screen. And yeah, it's pretty simple. It'll bring up Google Now, which is Google's version of Siri, which I think is better. And that last button on the far right shows you all of the recent apps you've used, so you can cross out of them so that they don't take up your battery or kind of your time. Gallery is just like photos on the iPhone, and that little thing on the far right is Google Photos, which I spoke about earlier. Those are automatically backed up to Google Photos on your computer, which is pretty cool. I don't know, I think this slide is pretty straightforward. It's just ways to lock your phone. I don't think you can use Face Unlock on Apple, but
You can only use your fingerprint on Apple to unlock your phone as opposed to a password.
so there you go. This is how you change all of your sound in your settings. You would just go to your settings, look for sound, it's there, pretty simple. This icon, whenever it pops up, means that you can click on it and share whatever you're viewing through a text, Facebook, email, whatever you want. And on Google, that's how you download apps.
It's going to look a little bit different on an iPhone. It looks like essentially like a little box, and then with an arrow coming out of it, I believe, to share things.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is all we have.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.